Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a Friday in August of 2025. My name is Melissa, and this is Melissa's Struggling Walk with Jesus. I use the Navigator's Bible Reading Plan and the Amplified Holy Bible to share the Word of God with you. I am on month 2, reading 17 today, and I am going to be covering the book of Acts, chapter 24, Psalms, chapter 39, and Leviticus chapter 5 through 7 today. In the previous video, we covered Matthew chapter 17 already. I have an issue personally with stopping in the middle of a chapter, so I have decided that if for some reason the Navigator's Bible Reading Plan has separated the chapters, I will finish that chapter and just let you know in the next video that what I did. So today we are only covering Acts, Psalms, and Exodus in month 2, reading 17. So we'll start in with Acts chapter 24, verse 1. The title is Paul Before Felix, and it says, 5 days later, the high priest Ananias came down from Jerusalem to Caesarea with some elders and an attorney named Tertullus, acting as spokesman in council. They presented to the governor their formal charges against Paul. After Paul had been summoned, Tertullus began the complaint against him, saying to the governor, "Since through you we have attained great peace, and since by your foresight reforms are being carried out for this nation, in every way and in every place, most excellent Felix, we acknowledge this with all gratitude. But so that I do not weary you further, I beg you to grant us, by your kindness, a brief hearing. For we have found this man to be a public menace, and one who instigates dissension among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the heretical sect of the Nazarenes. He even tried to desecrate the temple, but we took him into custody, and we intended to judge him by our law. But Lysias the commander came, and with great force took him out of our hands, and ordered his accusers to come before you. By interrogating him yourself concerning all these matters, you will be able to determine the truth about these things with which we charge him." The Jews also joined in the attack, declaring and insisting that these things were so. Because I goofed up, I will reread verse 9. The Jews also joined in the attack, declaring and insisting that these things were so. When the governor nodded for him to speak, Paul answered, "Knowing that for many years you have been a judge over this nation, I make my defense cheerfully and with good courage. As you can easily verify, it has been no more than 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem to worship. Neither in the temple, nor in the synagogues, nor elsewhere in the city did they find me carrying on a discussion or disputing with anybody, or causing a crowd to gather. Nor can they present evidence to you to prove what they now bring against me. But I confess this to you, that according to the way which they call a divisive and heretical sect, I do worship and serve the God of our fathers confidently, believing everything that is in accordance with the law of Moses and that is written in the prophets, having the same hope in God, which these men cherish themselves, that there shall certainly be a resurrection of the dead, both of the righteous and of the wicked. In view of this, I also do my best and strive always to have a clear conscience before God and before men." Verse 16 was used in my church by my pastor. Now verse 17. Now after several years I came to Jerusalem to bring to my people charitable contributions and offerings. They found me in the temple presenting these offerings after I had undergone the rites of purification, without any crowd or uproar. But there were some Jews from the west coast province of Asia Minor, who ought to have been here before you to present their charges, if they have anything against me. Or else let these men tell what crime they found me guilty of when I stood before the council, Sanhedrin, Jewish high court. Other than for this one statement which I had shouted out as I stood among them, for the resurrection of the dead, I am on trial before you today. But Felix, having a rather accurate understanding about the way, put them off, saying, When Lysias, the commander, comes down, I will decide your case. Then he ordered the centurion to keep Paul in custody, but to let him have some freedom. And he told the centurion not to stop any of his friends from providing for his needs. Several days later, Felix came with his wife, Drusilla, who was a Jewess. He sent for Paul and listened to him talk about faith in Christ Jesus. But as he was discussing righteousness, self-control, honorable behavior, personal integrity, and the judgment to come, Felix became frightened and said, Go away for now. And when I find a convenient time, I will send for you. At the same time, he was also hoping to get money from Paul as a bribe, so he continued to send for him quite often and talked with him. But after 2 years had passed, Felix was succeeded in office by Porcius Festus, and wishing to do the Jews a favor, Felix left Paul imprisoned. So that is all of Acts chapter 24. I'm going to go back and read to you what my Amplified Holy Bible has in my study Bible. Verse 5 says, For we have found this man to be a public menace and one who instigates dissension among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the heretical sect of the Nazarenes. Where it says instigates, this is inciting rebellion, was a serious crime under Roman law. Also in verse 5, where it says sect of the Nazarene, this is where the Romans had forbidden the establishment of any new religion. All right, verse 6 says, He even tried to desecrate the temple, but we took him into custody, and we intended to judge him by our law. Where it says, and we intended to judge him by our law. It says, early manuscripts do not contain the remainder of verse 6 and verse 7, nor the first part of verse 8. So it does not have, let's see. And we intended to judge him by our law, but Lysias the commander came and with great force took him out of our hands and ordered his accusers to come before you. So that part is not in other manuscripts. All right, verse 14 says, But I confess this to you, that according to the way, which they call a divisive and heretical sect, I do worship and serve the God of our fathers, confidently, believing everything that is in accordance with the law of Moses, and that is written in the prophets, where it says the way. You can also see the note in chapter 9, verse 2, but Paul was probably referring to Jesus himself. All right, and verse 24 says, Several days later, Felix came with his wife Drusilla, who was a Jewess, and he sent for Paul and listened to him talk about faith in Christ Jesus. Where it says Drusilla, this is the youngest daughter of Herod Agrippa I. All right, verse 27 says, But after 2 years had passed, Felix was succeeded in office by Porcius Festus, and wishing to do the Jews a favor, Felix left Paul imprisoned. Where it says Porcius Festus, Festus served about 2 years as governor, the procurator. He was regarded as a fairly capable governor, superior to both his predecessor and his successor. All right, so that is all I have on Acts chapter 24. We will now turn to Psalms chapter 39. All right, so Psalms chapter 39 is the title is The Vanity of Life. It's to the chief musician for Jeduthun, and it's a psalm of David, and it says, I said, I will guard my ways, that I may not sin with my tongue. I will muzzle my mouth while the wicked are in my presence. I was mute and silent before my enemies. I refrained even from good, and my distress grew worse. My heart was hot within me, while I was musing the fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. Lord, let me know my life's end, and to appreciate the extent of my days. Let me know how frail I am, how transient is my stay here. Behold, you have made my days as short as hand widths, and my lifetime is as nothing in your sight. Surely every man at his best is a mere breath, a wisp of smoke, a vapor that vanishes. Check out Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 2. Selah. Verse 6. Surely every man walks around like a shadow in a charade. Surely they make an uproar for nothing. Each one holds up riches, not knowing who will receive them. Check out Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 18 and 19. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 31, and James chapter 4, verse 14. Verse 7. And now, Lord, for what do I expectantly wait? My hope, my confident expectation is in you. Save me from all my transgressions. Do not make me the scorn and reproach of the self-righteous, arrogant fool. I am mute, I do not open my mouth, because it is you who has done it. Remove your plague from me, I am wasting away because of the conflict and opposition of your hand. With rebukes you discipline man for sin. You consume like a moth what is precious to him. Surely every man is a mere breath, a wisp of smoke, a vapor that vanishes. Selah. Hear my prayer, O Lord, and listen to my cry. Do not be silent at my tears, for I am your temporary guest, a sojourner like all my fathers. O look away from me, that I may smile and again know joy, before I depart and am no more. All right, so that is all of Psalms chapter 39. Verse 2 says, I was mute and silent before my enemies. I refrained even from good, and my distress grew worse. When it says distress grew worse, other literature has the word pain. All right, so that is all we have for the book of Psalms. We're going to turn to Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 5. All right. So Leviticus chapter 5 is the law of guilt offerings, and it says, if anyone sins after he hears a public adjuration, solemn command to testify, when he is a witness, whether he has seen or otherwise known something, if he fails to report it, then he will bear his guilt and be held responsible. Or if someone touches any ceremonially unclean thing, whether the carcass of an unclean wild animal, or the carcass of an unclean domestic animal, or the carcass of unclean creeping things, even if he is unaware of it, he has become unclean and he will be guilty. Or if he touches human uncleanness, whatever kind it may be, and he becomes unclean, but he is unaware of it, when he recognizes it, he will be guilty. Or if anyone swears an oath thoughtlessly or impulsively aloud that he will do either evil or good, in whatever manner a person may speak thoughtlessly or impulsively with an oath, but he is unaware of it, when he recognizes it, he will be guilty in one of these. Check out Mark chapter 6, verse 23. Verse 5. So it shall be when a person is guilty in one of these, that he shall confess the sin he has committed. He shall bring his guilt offering to the Lord for the sin which he has committed, a female from the flock, a lamb or a goat as a sin offering, and so the priest shall make atonement on his behalf for his sin. But if he cannot afford a lamb, then he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons as his guilt offering for his sin to the Lord, one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. And he shall bring them to the priest, who shall offer first the one for the sin offering, and shall nip its head at the front of its neck, but shall not sever it completely. He shall also sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the altar, and the rest of the blood shall be drained out at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. The second bird he shall prepare as a burnt offering, according to the ordinance. So the priest shall make atonement on his behalf for the sin which he has committed, and it will be forgiven him. But if he cannot afford to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he shall bring as his offering for his sin the 10th part of an ephah of fine flour as a sin offering. He shall not put olive oil or incense on it, for it is a sin offering. He shall bring it to the priest, who shall take a handful of it as a memorial portion and offer it up in smoke on the altar with the offerings by fire to the Lord. It is a sin offering. In this way the priest shall make atonement for him for the sin which he has committed in one of these things, and it will be forgiven him. Then the rest shall be for the priest, like the grain offering. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, if a person commits a breach of faith and sins unintentionally against the holy things of the Lord, then he shall bring his guilt offering to the Lord, a ram without blemish from the flock, valued by you in shekels of silver, that is, the shekel of the sanctuary, as a guilt offering. He shall make restitution for the sin which he has committed against the holy thing, and shall add 1/5 of the ram's value to it, and give it to the priest. The priest shall then make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and he shall be forgiven. Now if anyone sins and does any of the things which the Lord has forbidden, though he was not aware of it, still he is guilty and shall bear his punishment. I'll reread verse 17. Now if anyone sins and does any of the things which the Lord has forbidden, though he was not aware of it, still he is guilty and shall bear his punishment. So check out Luke chapter 12, verse 48. Verse 18. He is then to bring to the priest a ram without blemish from the flock, according to your valuation, for a guilt offering. In this way the priest shall make atonement for him regarding the error which he committed unintentionally and did not know it, and he shall be forgiven. It is a guilt offering. He was certainly guilty before the Lord. All right, so that is all of chapter 5 in the book of Leviticus. Verse 1 says, if anyone sins after he hears a public adjuration, solemn command to testify when he is a witness, whether he has seen or otherwise known something, if he fails to report it, then he will bear his guilt and be held responsible. Where it says public adjuration. Other literature has the voice of an oath. This refers to a public announcement calling for witnesses to testify. All right, verse 4 says, or if anyone swears an oath thoughtlessly or impulsively aloud that he will do either evil or good, in whatever manner a person may speak thoughtlessly or impulsively with an oath, but he is unaware of it, then he recognizes it, he will be guilty in one of these, where it says aloud that he will do either evil or good. Other literature says, if his hand cannot reach enough for. Oh, sorry. Other literature has with his lips. Sorry. With his lips instead of that. All right. Verse 7 says, but if he cannot afford a lamb, then he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons as his guilt offering for his sin to the Lord. One is a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, where it says cannot afford a lamb. Other literature has if his hands cannot reach enough for. All right, verse 11 says, but if he cannot afford to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he shall bring as his offering for his sin the 10th part of an ephah of fine flour as a sin offering. He shall not put olive oil or incense on it, for it is a sin offering. Where it says ephah of fine flour, this is approximately 1 bushel. All right, so that is all of Leviticus chapter 5. We're going to move on to Leviticus chapter 6. This is, starting with verse 1, the title is Guilt Offering. And it says, then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, when anyone sins and acts unfaithfully against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor, companion, associate, in regard to a deposit or a security entrusted to him, or through robbery, or if he has extorted from his neighbor, or has found what was lost and lied about it and sworn falsely, so that he sins in regard to any one of the things a man may do. Then if he has sinned and is guilty, he shall restore what he took by robbery, or what he got by extortion, or the deposit which was entrusted to him, or the lost thing which he found, or anything about which he has sworn falsely. He shall not only restore it in full, but shall add to it 1/5 more. He shall give it to the one to whom it belongs on the day of his guilt offering. Then he shall bring to the priest his guilt offering to the Lord, a ram without blemish from the flock, as valued by you as a guilt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord, and he will be forgiven for any one of the things which he may have done to incur guilt. All right, so starting with verse 8, the title is Leviticus chapter 6, verse 8. The title is the priest's part in the offerings. And it says, then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the law of the burnt offering. The burnt offering shall remain on the hearth that is on the altar all night until morning, and the fire is to be kept burning on the altar. The priest is to put on his linen robe with his linen undergarments next to his body. Then he shall take up the ashes of the burnt offering, which the fire has consumed on the altar, and put them beside the altar. Then he shall take off his garments and put on something else, and take the ashes outside the camp to a ceremonially clean place. The fire on the altar shall be kept burning. It shall not be allowed to go out. The priest shall burn wood on it every morning, and he shall arrange the burnt offering on it, and offer the fat portions of the peace offerings up in smoke on it. And the fire shall be burning continually on the altar. It shall not be allowed to go out. Now this is the law of the grain offering. The sons of Aaron shall present it before the Lord in front of the altar. One of them shall take up from it a handful of the fine flour of the grain offering with its oil and all the incense that is on the grain offering. And he shall offer it up in smoke on the altar, a sweet and soothing aroma as the memorial offering to the Lord. What is left of it Aaron and his sons are to eat. It shall be eaten as unleavened bread in a holy place, and they are to eat it in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Check out 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 13 and 14. Verse 17. And it shall not be baked with leaven, which represents corruption or sin. I have given it as their share of my offering by fire. It is most holy, like the sin offering and the guilt offering. Every male among the sons of Aaron may eat it as his share. It is a permanent ordinance throughout your generations. from offerings by fire to the Lord. Whatever touches them will become consecrated, ceremonially clean. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This is the offering which Aaron and his sons are to present to the Lord on the day when he is anointed. The 10th of an ephah of fine flour as a regular grain offering. Half of it in the morning and half of it in the evening. It shall be prepared with oil on a griddle. When it is well stirred, you shall bring it. You shall present the grain offering in baked pieces as a sweet and soothing aroma to the Lord. The priest from among the sons of Aaron who is anointed in his place shall offer it. By a permanent statute it shall be entirely offered up in smoke to the Lord. So every grain offering of the priest shall be burned entirely. It shall not be eaten. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, This is the law of the sin offering. The sin offering shall be killed before the Lord in the same place where the burnt offering is killed. It is most holy. The priest who offers it for sin shall eat it. It shall be eaten in a holy place, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches its meat will become consecrated and ceremonially clean. When any of its blood splashes on a garment, you shall wash what was splashed on it in a holy place. Also the earthenware vessel in which it was boiled shall be broken. And if it was boiled in a bronze vessel, then that vessel shall be scoured and rinsed in water. Every male among the priests may eat this offering. It is most holy. But no sin offering from which any of the blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make atonements in the holy place shall be eaten. It shall be completely burned in the fire. Check out Hebrews chapter 13, verses 11 through 13. All right, that is all of Leviticus chapter 6. Verse 1 says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, where it says, Then the Lord. In Hebrew chapter 5, numbering continues on through verse 7. All right, verse 8 says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, where it says, Then the Lord. In Hebrew, this is verse 1 of chapter 6. That's good to know. It's pretty cool. Verse 17 says, It shall not be baked with leaven, which represents corruption or sin. I have given it as their share of my offering by fire. It is most holy, like the sin offering and the guilt offering. Well, it says most holy. Other literature has holy of holies, a common way to express the superlative most holy. In verses 18 says, I'll read verse 18 and 27, where it says, Every male among the sons of Aaron may eat it as his share. It is a permanent ordinance throughout your generations. From offerings by fire to the Lord, whatever touches them will become consecrated and ceremonially clean. That was verse 18, and verse 27 says, Whatever touches its meat will become consecrated, ceremonially clean, and when any of its blood splashes on a garment, you shall wash what was splashed on it in a holy place. All right, where it says, whatever touches, it can also be anyone who. All right, so that is all of Leviticus extra out of Leviticus chapter 20 or chapter 6. Now we'll move on to Leviticus chapter 7, verse 1. The title is the priest's part in the offerings, and it says, This is the law of the guilt offering. It is most holy. In the place where they kill the burnt offering, they are to kill the guilt offering, and he shall sprinkle its blood around on the altar. Then he shall offer all its fat, the fat tail and the fat that covers the entrails, and the 2 kidneys with the fat that is on them at the loins, and the lobe of the liver, which he shall remove with the kidneys. The priest shall offer them up in smoke on the altar as an offering by fire to the Lord. It is a guilt offering. Every male among the priests may eat it. It shall be eaten in a holy place. It is most holy. The guilt offering is like the sin offering. There is one law for both of them. The priest who makes atonement with it shall have it for himself. The priest who presents any man's burnt offering shall have for himself the hide of the burnt offering which he has presented. Likewise, every grain offering that is baked in the oven and everything that is prepared in a pan or on a griddle shall belong to the priest who presents it. Every grain offering, mixed with olive oil or dry, all the sons of Aaron may have, one as well as another. Now this is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which shall be presented to the Lord. If one offers it as a sacrificial meal of thanksgiving, then along with the sacrifice of thanksgiving, he shall offer unleavened cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and cakes of fine flour mixed with oil. With the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving, he shall present his offering with cakes of leavened bread. Of this he shall present one cake from each offering as a contribution to the Lord. It shall belong to the priest who sprinkles the blood of the peace offerings. The meat of the sacrifice of thanksgiving presented as a peace offering shall be eaten on the day that it is offered. None of it shall be left until morning. But if the sacrifice of his offering is a vow or a free will offering, it shall be eaten on the day that he offers his sacrifice, and on the next day that which remains of it may be eaten. But what is left over from the meat of the sacrifice on the third day shall be completely burned in the fire. If any of the meat of the sacrifice of his peace offerings is ever eaten on the third day, then it will not be accepted, and the one who brought it will not be credited with it. It shall be an abhorred, offensive thing, and the one who eats it shall bear his own guilt. The meat that comes in contact with anything that is unclean shall not be eaten. It shall be burned in the fire. As for other meat, everyone who is ceremonially clean may eat it. But the one who eats meat from the sacrifice of peace offerings which belong to the Lord, in his uncleanness, that person shall be cut off from his people, excluding him from the atonement made for them. When anyone touches any unclean thing, human uncleanness, or an unclean animal, or any unclean detestable thing, and then eats the meat of the sacrifice of the Lord's peace offerings, that person shall be cut off from his people, excluding him from the atonement made for them. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, You shall not eat any fat from an ox, a sheep, or a goat. The fat of an animal which dies in natural causes, and the fat of one which is torn to pieces by a predator, may be put to any other use, but under no circumstances are you to eat it. For whoever eats the fat of the animal from which an offering by fire is presented to the Lord, that person who eats shall be cut off from his people, excluding him from the atonement made for them. Moreover, you are not to eat any blood of any kind, whether a bird or animal, in any of your dwelling places. Whoever eats any blood, that person shall be cut off from his people. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, He who offers the sacrifice of his peace offerings to the Lord shall bring his offering to the Lord from the sacrifice of his peace offerings. With his own hands he is to bring offerings by fire to the Lord. He shall bring the fat with the breast, so that the breast may be presented as a wave offering before the Lord. The priest shall offer up the fat and smoke on the altar, but the breast shall be for Aaron and his sons. You shall give the right thigh to the priest as a contribution from the sacrifices of your peace offerings. The son of Aaron who offers the blood of the peace offerings and the fat shall have the right thigh as his portion. For I have taken the breast of the wave offering, the thigh of the heave offering from the Israelites, from the sacrifices of their peace offerings, and I have given them to Aaron, the priest, and to his sons as their perpetual portion from the Israelites. This is the consecrated portion from the offerings by fire to the Lord that was designated for Aaron and his sons on the day he presented them to serve as priests to the Lord. The Lord commanded this to be given to the priests by the Israelites on the day that he anointed them. It is their portion perpetually throughout their generations. This is the law of the burnt offerings, the grain offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering, the consecration, ordination offering, and the sacrifice of peace offerings, which the Lord commanded Moses at Mount Sinai on the day he commanded the Israelites to present their offerings to the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai. All right, that is all of Leviticus. Chapter 7. All right, verse 20 says, "But the one who eats meat from the sacrifice of peace offerings which belong to the Lord in his uncleanness, that person shall be cut off from his people, excluding him from the atonement made for them." Where it says cut off from, this may involve banishment or an execution. And verse 21 says, "When anyone touches any unclean thing, human uncleanness or any unclean animal, or any unclean detestable thing, and then eats the meat of the sacrifice of the Lord's peace offerings, that person shall be cut off from his people, excluding him from the atonement made for them." Where it says detestable thing, some manuscripts read swarming thing. All right, so that is all the extra out of Leviticus chapter 7. This is all of month 2, reading 17. I appreciate each and every one of you listening to my videos. I appreciate and hope that God has blessed you through the reading of Acts, Psalms, and Leviticus today. I pray that God is with you and that he helps you throughout today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.